And welcome to this episode of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income source located in Clear Lake and Humboldt, Iowa, serving clients in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. Well, how are you today? I hope you're doing well, taking a little bit of time for yourself, and welcome to today's program. Now, today, we're going to be taking a little bit of a different approach. Today, we're going to be discussing those individuals, and maybe you'll find yourself in this category, where you have now obtained the golden age of 59 and a half. Now, obviously, 59 and a half is pretty significant for a number of financial reasons. But one of the things that we want to be discussing is, all too often, financial advisors, I know I'm guilty of this as well, on this radio show or in books or podcasts or articles, we discuss all the time about the mistakes that are being made after a person retires. We even talk a little bit about the mistakes that people can make, just before they retire. But today we want to discuss the mistakes that we can make when we're as young as 59 and a half, sometimes even before that. And so if you're basically a part of that group and maybe you've got another 5 years, maybe you've got another 7 years or even longer before you retire, I really encourage you to pay attention today. There's a few things that you're probably going to learn that you didn't even realize that you may have not been doing. And in many respects, we're going to be just kind of studying what are the kind of the overlooked or the very simple sins of omission when it comes to being 59 and a half and having financial responsibilities to ourselves, to our spouses, to our loved ones before we actually get to retirement. Now, if you're brand new to this radio show, if you're brand new to this podcast, I want to just say thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for listening to this radio program. I encourage you to go to our website, johnsonwim.com. There's just a wealth of information that is available. There's white papers. You can watch the previous YouTube videos that have been recorded and posted. You can even listen to past radio shows. I also encourage you, if you're of the mind, if you're a reader, if you like to be able to have things tangibly in your hand, I encourage you to pick up a copy of my book, The Capitalized Retirement, something that I think could definitely give you a good foundation, at least a good basis of how to properly plan your retirement so that you can execute that plan of retirement with confidence. You can be successful in retirement. And my definition of successful retirements, as so many of my clients have taught me, is retiring with more income than you need. So let's go ahead and let's get started. First I want just a little bit of a wake up. I was doing a little bit of research and, it is astounding to me, even though, and maybe it's just me, maybe you're this way too, but when we think about life expectancy in the United States today, it seems to me the life expectancy is getting longer and longer and longer. It seems like all too often we've got individuals that are living well into their 80s and 90s now. We've got individuals where we open up our newspaper, we look at the obituary, and we're seeing, individuals that are 101 and 102 and 103. And yet, statistically, it's very interesting that the average life expectancy in America is still blended between men and women. It's still sitting at 77 and a half years of age. Now, when you think about it, that means that if you think about 59 and a half as an age, as a part of the overall average life expectancy, if you're going to maintain an average life expectancy of 77 and a half years of age, and you make it to 59 and a half, that means that you have already used up, you've already seen over 77.4% of your life. And that was pretty astounding to me. I didn't really think of it in that way. And what does that really mean? Well, I think that there's 5 very dangerous words that all of us are guilty of saying. And that is, I'll worry about that later. Well, the reality is that we want the years in which we retire to be some of the best years we've ever experienced. I relish being a father. I relish watching my kids grow up and being a part of their life as much as I possibly can. And I've got a busy career, and I'm not always able to be there for every single sporting event and every single thing that they do. But the reality is that I also want to be there in retirement for my kids, for my grandkids. I want to be there for a spouse. I want to be able to enjoy and to do before I know that I can't. And so as a result, I think we need to all pay attention to that phrase, "I'll worry about this later," and start taking action today. Start taking initiative to get financially engaged, to get engaged in your health, to be able to get engaged in your estate planning. Now, no matter how much I bang the table and, I try to encourage you, no one can make you take that action except for you. But I encourage you, realize, and I think all of us do to some extent, that life is not forever, and we need to be able to be proactively working today to ensure as good of a tomorrow as is possible. So why this 59.5 thing? Well, the first thing that we have to realize is that 59.5 is very significant to us from a financial perspective, because it is at that age of 59.5 that all of a sudden, whether you know this or not, the shackles come off. You see, when we think about all the various different ways that we can save money, maybe it's a Roth IRA, maybe it's a 401k, a 403b, a traditional IRA, whatever type of retirement plan we have to realize that those plans are specifically earmarked for having income in retirement. Now, the government has certain rules. The IRS has certain rules surrounding all of those various different retirement savings plans. And one of the deterrents, one of the rules, is that let's say I have a 401k and I withdraw money out of that 401k, or I have an IRA, a traditional IRA. Both of those accounts are pre-tax accounts. And if I take money, let's say I take $1,000 out of that IRA or that 401k, not only can I guarantee myself that it's going to be taxable to me, I'm going to take that $1,000 that I withdrew, and I'm going to be reporting and paying income taxes on that $1,000 that I withdrew. But guess what else? I'm also going to be paying a 10% penalty tax. Now, if I've reached the age of 59.5, well, guess what? Those shackles have come off. Now, I'm absolutely free to take money from that account. And though I may end up paying some tax on that withdrawal from that 401k or that IRA, I'm no longer going to be subject to the penalty tax. Now, as we get into this, we're going to look at, maybe 4 or 5 different things that I think are oftentimes overlooked that we need to be very careful to pay attention to if we're over the age of 59.5. So one of the things that this really isn't even applicable to 59.5, rather it is applicable to the age of 50, but I often see too many people not paying attention to it until they get to 60 years of age or older. And that is the catch-up provision. You see, when we have IRAs that we contribute to, or we have 401ks that we contribute to, if we are younger than the age of 50, we are limited as to how much we can put into that account for retirement savings. Now, you would think that the government would want you to save as much as possible so that they would not be on the hook, or they would not have the statistical probability of having to help you out financially later on in retirement. But the reality is that the government also is not stupid. And they know that whatever money we divert into our 401k or into our traditional IRA from year to year, those are dollars that we are not reporting and paying taxes on. Now, in this particular case, let's just use the IRA. It's pretty simple. In 2025, we can contribute $7,000 into our IRA. But the moment that we reach 50 or older, Now, all of a sudden, we have what's called a catch-up provision. And what that does is that affords us the opportunity to increase how much we are contributing into that pre-tax account, allowing us to be able to put more money in. So now I can, instead of saving just $7,000 into my IRA, now I can save $8,000. Instead of taking and just putting in my normal contribution limit to my 401k, now my 401k can accept an additional $7,500 of contributions simply because I'm over the age of 50. So why is it that so many clients are not paying attention to the catch-up provision until they reach 60 or older? I think it's at that point when you hit 60, all of a sudden you begin to realize time is moving faster than ever before. Ooh, my goodness, I'm getting closer to retirement. Ooh, I better pay better attention to what I am doing. And so my encouragement to you is, if you're listening to this radio show, you're maybe watching this on YouTube, or you're watching the podcast somewhere else in some other venue of social media. If you're in a position where you're over the age of 50, do not diminish the fact that now you can contribute more. Because as I've said, and I try to encourage so many of you as listeners and viewers, we get out of retirement as much as we put into retirement. And the more we can save, the more dollars we can set aside for retirement, means more income for us when we are retired. It means more satisfaction and more peace of mind to know that we've got more capital there to draw from if we absolutely need to in retirement. So we're coming up on our first break, and I know we've barely gotten into this, but sit tight. As we come back, we're going to be discussing so many of the other facets of being over the age of 59 and a half, potentially touching on some areas that you didn't even know existed, but you need to be aware of so that you can take advantage of them. Sit tight. We will be right back. And welcome back to the second half of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management and Retirement Income Stores, located in Clear Lake and Humboldt, Iowa, serving clients in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. Well, how are you today? If you're just joining us, welcome to today's program. Today we're discussing age 59 and a half mistakes. And these are things that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know, but maybe you've heard them, but you've never really made application to them. The age of 59 and a half is very relevant when we think about average life expectancy, and we realize that, that's about 77 to 78. Well, by the time we make it to 59 and a half years of age, we've already used up about 77% of our runway. So now things are getting serious, and my concern is that I want to make certain that you're taking absolute massive action to be able to utilize this 59 and a half and older rule to your advantage to help you get prepared for retirement and have the best chance of success in retirement. Now, this is something that I touch on within my book, The Capitalized Retirement. If you're unfamiliar with the book, I encourage you to go to any of the major book resellers where you'll be able to find a copy of my book, The Capitalized Retirement. So we started to discuss in the last part of the first half of our program that if we're not taking advantage of the catch-up provision, allowing us to add more into our 401k and more into our IRA simply because we're over the age of 50, I think that we're not taking advantage of a massive opportunity. Now, granted, some of you out there are going to say, well, I don't have the money. I'm already maxed out. I'm already contributing as much as I possibly can. And if that's the case, I respect that entirely. But if we have the ability, if we have found ourselves in a position where we've got more income than what we need, and we realize we're building up savings in the bank, but we're really not adding more to our retirement savings, we have to relook at that, and we have to pay very careful attention to direct as many dollars into the Roth and into the pre-tax side of our retirement savings plans as we possibly can. So what's another mistake that I see many people making? Well, this one may surprise you. We've talked an awful lot about putting money in, but very rarely do you hear me talking about taking money out prematurely. Now, I mentioned it in the beginning of the first half of the program where once you get to 59 and a half, all of a sudden this penalty tax goes away, this 10% penalty tax. Now, why is that relevant to you? Well, the reason it's relevant is many people today, and statistics are going to back me up on this. When we look at the average American is really just drowning in debt. There's an awful lot of debt. And here's the thing. We live in a society right now where the interest rates are really, really high. Now, granted, the Federal Reserve is bringing that down little by little. They gave us 3 cuts at the tail end of 2024. But you know what? When it comes to interest rates like on credit card debt, I'm sorry, but they are absolutely taking advantage of you. And one of the things that we know about retirement is the less debt we have, the better. The less debt we have, the less income we have to have in order to be able to live the life that we want, to maintain the lifestyle. And so if you're in a position where you are working, you are 59 and a half, you still have a wage, but you have credit card debt, and you simply cannot get rid of that debt. You just simply can't get ahead. This is kind of the one exception to the rule where I'm going to encourage a person to rip the Band-Aid off. You see, you can take money from your 401k. You can take money from an IRA. You can take money from your Roth account as long as you've satisfied the 5-year rule. And you can use the money withdrawn from that retirement savings account to then go ahead and pay off that debt. Now that debt is gone. Now that is a monkey off your back. And when you think about it, let's say that, where you are income-wise, you're in the 12% tax bracket. Let's say that your credit cards are charging you 20%. Well, if you've got $20,000 of credit card debt, is it worth you taking money out of your 401k, paying 12% on it, no penalty tax because you're over the age of 59 and a half, in order to pay down that credit card? And the answer is absolutely it is. Because here's the thing, if you're not getting rid of that debt today based upon the income that you've got, and you just simply don't have enough left in your tank, you can only work so many hours and you can only work so long. Well, this is an opportunity for you to get rid of that debt. Now, granted, you can do other things that are maybe creative, like take a loan from the 401k to pay down the credit card debt, but you're kind of replacing, one loan with another loan. Now, granted, 401k loans aren't going to probably be 20% interest, but the reality is that this is something where you can take full advantage of that 59 and a half rule, where you're only paying tax, you're not paying any penalty tax, and withdraw it in order to get that obligation gone, get it out of your life. Now, number 3, this is also talking about withdrawals, and this is something that, again, it's often overlooked. Now, many of you that are faithful listeners to this radio show, you are farmers. Many of you are business owners. And I've discussed this in the past, but I don't think that many people hear me when I talk about the advantage of this. You see, when I put money into, say, an IRA, maybe I have a SEP IRA, a Simplified Employee Pension IRA, and I'm a farmer. I'm putting that money aside, and I'm putting that money into that SEP, and I'm getting a tax deduction on it. Now, that's a good thing, right? I've had a good year. I've got good income. I want to be able to pay less tax, so I set some aside in that SEP IRA for savings. Now, as normally expected, when I go to withdraw money from that SEP IRA, guess what? It's going to be taxable to me. If I put it in and I got a tax deduction, that means when I take it out, I'm going to pay tax on it. Except for if I have a loss. If I have had a substantial loss on my business, whether it's a farm, a business, whatever, my income has sustained a loss. It is a tangible loss. Well, now that financial loss, I can offset that loss by pulling money from my SEP, from my solo 401k, from my traditional IRA. And guess what? Because I'm putting something taxable against something that is a loss, I'm able to essentially pull that money out of that account tax-free. So I got a tax deduction on the way in the door, but I was able to take advantage of the loss by removing and withdrawing money from my taxable account and not paying taxes on it. So that's another area where we have to be careful. As long as we are over the age of 59 and a half, we can do that and we won't have to contend with a 10% early surrender penalty tax, something that way too often we just simply aren't paying attention to. Now, another area that I think is absolutely crucial is when you make it to 59 and a half, let's say that I survey most of my clients. Most of my clients, quite honestly, did not hire me as an advisor until they were well over the age of 55. Most of them probably age 60 and older. And that's kind of the case for many people in America today. Your financial advisor, as it were, is you. You've got your 401k through work, you're investing because HR tells you to do it, your friends tell you to do it, your coworkers tell you to do it, but you really don't have a financial advisor. You're just kind of winging it. And maybe, again, you fall into that camp where you say, well, I'll worry about this later. Once I get closer to retirement, then I'll worry about an advisor. Well, at the age of 59 and a half, whether you know this or not, more often than not, your 401k has now become freed up. And what that means is, forget the penalty tax. Now you have the ability of rolling money from that employer plan into an IRA. So if you have pre-tax money in your 401k or your 403b, you can roll that money tax-free as long as you're over the age of 15 and a half into your own personal traditional IRA. If you have Roth money in your 401k, you can do the same there. Now, what does that afford you to do? Well, it's a tremendous benefit for many people. It can help you cut down on expenses. Believe it or not, 401ks and 403bs can have some pretty high expenses in them. So you may find that going to an IRA is going to be less expensive, and who doesn't want to save expenses and money on your savings? Number two, it's going to give you the opportunity of being able to begin a relationship with a financial advisor. Financial advisors rarely will manage 401ks or 403bs. There's not much in it for them. They'll give you some advice, of course, or they might try to finagle a charge out of you like a consultant fee, but I don't know that that's really worth it. So in this case, if you're over the age of 59 and a half, and you have the ability of taking a chunk of money out of that employer plan and putting it into an IRA, now you have a legitimate business relationship with a financial advisor. You can begin to explore other options. You can develop that relationship with an advisor who down the road, when you retire in 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years, you have the ability of being able to now already have that relationship in play. You've already discussed plans for retirement, strategies for getting income, and it's a pretty smooth transition. But there's another key component here that we cannot forget, and that is diversification. When you think about employer plans, remember those plans are going to be more inclined to be more risky. They're going to be more aggressive, and that's great when we're young. We need to appreciate, we need to focus on growth. But as we get older, we want to reduce the risk. Number two, we also know that there is no interest in dividends being paid within 401ks. They're just going to reinvest any dividends you might get back into buying more of the mutual fund. It's not until you break free of that fishbowl of the employer plan, you get into an IRA or a Roth, it's an individual one. Now, all of a sudden, the world is your oyster. You can invest any way you want, and you can begin getting tangible dividends. This helps you to diversify how you're investing your money. Can you still do growth? Of course you can, but now you can actually get growth and dividends. You want to be able to reduce your risk? Of course you can, because again, you can invest that IRA any way you choose. So it's a huge thing once you hit 59 and a half to be able to take advantage, build that relationship with an advisor, get some accounts opened so that you can do things like Roth conversions. You can invest for income. You can reduce your expenses and get kind of a taste of all of the investment alternatives and opportunities that exist outside of the retirement plan. Now, very quickly, we're just about out of time, so I want to blaze through some bonus ideas. When you reach 59 and a half, you know what? Time is getting close for you to retire. So I encourage you, get your Social Security account up and running. Look at Social Security, start doing Social Security planning. If you've made it over 59 and a half, if you have a pension, you're one of the select few, get your pension estimates going. Make absolutely certain that you have looked at your asset allocation and making certain that you're comfortable with that being this close to retirement. Well, I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember, it's up to you to make today a great day.